what are they doing as an audience? Well, we removed two major friction points that exist on any website. Loading times, whether you're headless or not, loading times. And number two is the number of clicks to the checkout, right? We shrink that down from on average 10 to 14 for a given brand to 1 to 2 to 3 clicks. Both those friction points removed, conversion rates minimum 40% higher than what are going to be on the website.
Welcome back to Bitesized. I'm super excited today. I've got Neal on the podcast. Neal is at TapCart, a mobile app company that we work with and most of our brands work with. Neal, stoked to have you on. Welcome to Bitesized. How are you doing today?
Hey, Daniel, so excited to be here. You have no idea. Love the work you do. So excited to have this conversation.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate it. So quickly, as a way of an introduction, who are you? What do you do? And what is TapCart?
Yeah, so my name is Neal. I am a team lead of the brand experience team on the enterprise and strategic level here at TapCart. I work with the Shopify Plus brands that are looking to explore a mobile app. And where that typically, that conversation will start is understanding like what the specific areas a brand is looking to solve specifically on the retention side. So as a part of my role here, my goal is to meet with individual brands, understand what their existing retention strategy is, see the areas that need to be optimized for and solved for, and then helping them execute and launch an app that is going to solve those various challenges, whether it's on retention, customer experience, or acquisition.
Amazing. That's a lot. So for anyone who isn't aware of like mobile apps or TapCart or anything else, you mentioned kind of customer experience and retention. What is the purpose of having a mobile app? What's the benefit to a brand? How should they be thinking about where to implement a mobile app into their broader marketing ecosystem?
First, when we think about like the why behind an app and the value it could potentially bring, first understanding like backing up to where those users are visiting that brand. And we know the vast majority of traffic, 80, 90% of that brand's traffic is happening on mobile, right? So this is where we want to make it like build a scenario where how can we build the best possible experience on mobile? And when you think of mobile browsers, right, brands spend so much resources into, improving their website, improving site speed, improving the actual experience there. But at the end of the day, for lack of a better term, mobile websites are really tough to get it to be an optimal experience for the customer, right? There are friction points that just really are struggle to get solved for. And so now when you think about that, like how can we optimize the experience so that for that loyal shopper, for that customer that already loves the brand and has a connection with the brand, now just has a much more seamless experience, right? And as a result of that seamless experience, they end up coming back more frequently. They end up shopping more frequently. They end up, having higher AOVs because of that better experience. Conversion rates as that cohort go up in a bigger way. And ultimately LTV is that end goal, right? So it really comes down to understanding the mobile experience. And then how do I get my loyal customers into a certain part of the funnel or a channel that's going to be designed to give them the best possible experience and allow them to, embrace the brand or develop a deeper connection with that brand.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if I'm getting it right, it's more of a loyalty, retention, customer experience play. So it's not a net new customer acquisition play potentially. So what are some of the like specific things that a mobile app allows you to do that you've seen, and maybe there's an example like that allow brands to really build on that customer experience and customer loyalty point that an app allows? That, if I think of traditional methods, it's like loyalty programs, email, SMS, subscription programs, those types of things. What does an app provide that those traditional methods don't provide?
When you think about, getting your loyal audience into a channel that's built for them, you think of their website. It's built for anyone and everyone that's willing to potentially buy from that brand, right? Anyone who comes, let's hope that they convert and ultimately become a lifelong customer. But then when you think of the app, who is going to be downloading that app? It's probably, although it certainly can be used at the top of funnel as a strategy, but it's generally designed for that more loyal base, that more engaged base. So this is the opportunity for you to actually bring that loyal base and curate a unique experience that's speaking specifically to that top 30% of your customers, giving them that kind of VIP type of experience or exclusive experience that they could not get anywhere else, right? And I think that's the largest thing here. So when it comes to like what makes an app successful, it's really not just about e-commerce. Just because it's easier to buy doesn't mean that's enough value to drive traffic to your app. It really comes down to like, how do I create a deeper brand experience with the customer? How do I get more personalized with that customer? How do I provide recommendations to that customer that they wouldn't be getting in any other channel? Um, when you think about who is that customer that's going to download, um, I think that's a big doubt for brands. It's like, who would download my app? And the reality is that when you look at the other like retention channels, whether it's email or SMS, for instance, it's literally that audience. So an app down user falls into that same part of the funnel as an email subscriber and SMS subscriber. The difference is email pointing to a website may be converting at 2.5% and bringing back that user 1.5 times at best on a monthly basis. Same thing with an SMS, pushing to that website, 2.5% conversion rate, and bringing them back 1.5 to 2 times per month on a monthly basis. When you think of an app, we're not living in a browser. We're not living in an email inbox or text thread. You're living directly on the home screen of the user's device. And so this is the part where the brand has the opportunity to capitalize on those valuable real estate that they could own, someone's home screen, right? And that's what's going to promote so many more clicks into the brand that they could possibly achieve through a website, right? It's a function of the real estate where they're living.
That makes sense. And on that point, then is another kind of like sub benefit of we live in a world now where there's data loss happening in platform when it comes to like customer acquisition, Facebook, TikTok, everything else. So within an app environment, for anyone who doesn't kind of understand tracking pieces, does that provide you with that full clarity of who that customer is, so you are not losing any data when they're in that in-app environment?
Absolutely, right? And so we're talking in real time with the brand's Shopify store as well. So all of the customer data, whether on the app side or the website side, is synced and living inside Shopify. But then the other parts of like where an app can be used in a really creative way from a data collection perspective is like classic example, post-purchase, right? Post-purchase, whether it's surveys, whether it's other tools that are going to drive those app downloads, and then we're collecting and analyzing all of that behavior and sending it back through Klaviyo, right? So the brand has the opportunity to aggregate that data, segment that data, and then potentially leverage that data in other channels like email or SMS. But even cooler on the app side is collect that data and then send them push down a different push notification journey depending on who that customer is, what their behavior is, what data you collected from them as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. Um, a question that I come to think of it, this is super insightful. So people in the in-app environment, um, is there then a segregation against those users from receiving things like email and SMS? What have you seen brands do that's most effective? Do you think, well, they're in my in-app environment, so I'm gonna only communicate to them here, or do they still receive other email, SMS messaging? Like what's the best composition of ways of communication? Because I can see the benefit of that one-to-one in-app experience, but do you only do that, or is it beneficial to have multiple streams of communication to them?
Well, there's strong theories on both ends of that spectrum, right? First part, I'm a huge believer that retention is a flywheel, and you should be leveraging all owned channels, right? You own your email subscribers, you own your SMS subscribers, and you own your app users, right? So I feel like all of those can be used in tandem with one another. It's not necessarily that one is better than the other. It's actually how can you mix your messaging and hit your customer from different channels, and different customers have different ways they prefer to interact, right? So it's about using all of those retention flywheels to get a sense for what that customer prefers, right? Now, where that can backfire is if you're sending the same message via email, same message via SMS, and same message via push notification, and now it's a redundancy, right? Where the customer is just getting inundated with the same message. But the most effective strategy is where you're kind of tailoring your messaging through different touch points. When you think of SMS, you think of it works historically, fairly well for brands. Um, it's meeting customers right where they are on their mobile device. But the challenge to SMS has been, if you look at like I'd say 95% of brands leveraging it, it's very transactional in nature. Here's a promotion, here's a sale, here's a discount. It's very transactional in nature. And why does it happen with SMS? It's because largely due to the SMS costs, right? So when you think of the cost, if you have, 200,000 SMS subscribers, and let's say you're sending 2 messages a week, you're probably spending anywhere from 2 to 3 thousand a week on SMS, campaigns, and in north of $10,000 a month, right? So you're paying per send. Therefore, it's almost forced by its model to be transactional, see the ROI on every single message you send, right? Whereas when you think of push notifications, they're unlimited and free, right? They have the same open rate as SMS. They just don't cost anything, right, to do. So now speaking to the other end of the spectrum, you are seeing brands who are more cost conscious with their tech stack than ever before. We're in the most margin focused D2C economy imaginable that we've seen to date. So at TapCart, we say that we see about 60 to 70% of our brands find that they are able to actually scale back on their SMS budget just a little bit by like about 20% because they got those 20% of their SMS subscribers downloaded their app and they don't have to pay to send them a message anymore, right? So they work really well together because every customer is different. But on the flip side, it can also work as a cost savings metric right now, right? So with brands who are looking to scale back on costs, they're able to see that same ROI, if not better, because of the higher conversion rate associated with an app, and are not paying per send, right?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Um, what are the common misconceptions around building an app, right? Because, if I even think back to, brands we've worked with, going back like 3-4 years, it was like, it's expensive, it's really difficult, launching it costs a lot of money, the maintenance costs a lot of money. What are some of the misconceptions you still see in the market? And I guess, how does TapCart solve for that? I'm
Yeah.
not a super tech savvy person. Maybe I shouldn't admit that, but like the no code is seen as like a big benefit. Why is that a benefit?
So the first part is, a common misconception is an app right for me, right, or for my brand? And many brands have the misconception that they need to be of a certain size in revenues to determine if an app is going to be successful. Not true at all. In fact, very small brands can be wildly successful with an app. The gauge for where we see a brand is an ideal fit for an app is, do they have at least 15% of their revenue coming from a repeat customer? If that answer is yes, then they're an amazing fit regardless of their revenue base. Because you have to think about is that customer likely to download? If they're a repeat customer, they're more likely to download. If you don't have a repeat customer base, they're not going to download. So we see these huge mega brands, they sell mattresses, right? They're usually not the best fit for an app, right? Because it's a one and done purchase. But when you think of fashion, beauty, self-care, when you think of even home furniture or any of these other segments where you're going to see repeat purchases, as long as 15% are coming from a repeat purchase, you're a great candidate for an app, right? On the second part where you say, the misconception of an app, it's expensive. It takes a long time. It's going to take a huge lift, right? In order to launch this thing and make it successful. So historically, that's exactly been the case, right? So when you think of, hiring a developer, getting quoted a 6-figure budget, the costs associated with that maintenance, the time to launch, the time to see the ROI, these are all traditionally, when you think of brands as successful as they've been, they're all really lean teams, right? So that's been a pretty heroic lift, right, for that brand. So enter, a company like TapCart, where we kind of take that whole model and turn it upside down. And we say, we have this platform that is no code. We're going to, from the moment you say you want to start, we'll have that app live in under 2 weeks, live on the App Store in under 2 weeks, right? We're going to do all of the lift to everything for you. You're not going to have to lift a finger. And we're going to be your strategy partner in making it a success. So think of the thousands of brands we work with. We have this bird's eye view of data sets that say, this works, this doesn't work. We're going to leverage all of those learnings and give it to you in ongoing strategic advice. So we're set up with zero upfront costs and just a subscription. If no one downloads your app, you're just going to turn the lights off the TapCart. You're just going to turn the lights off, right? So it puts the pressure on us to leverage all that data to give you that data to make it a success. So, historically now the lift is effectively minimized. And then lastly, why have agencies historically been reluctant to explore apps, right? Agencies are usually mostly focused on the web side of the equation. Um, Many agencies may have previously viewed TapCart as a competitor, like, oh, I could, custom build this for my client myself, or I can introduce them to a no-code solution where they feel like they may be losing out on something. The reality is, how many of those brands can afford a $250,000 budget upfront? So they end up not doing it, and as a result, they lose the power of having an app. TapCart loses, agency loses, everyone kind of loses. So then about 6 months ago, we launched something called Custom Blocks, which basically says we have the software to be able to build 99% of your app. But in the event you want to custom develop anything, we have the ability for any agency you hire of your choice to go custom develop a feature on top of your app with TapCart using our SDK. And that basically makes the possibilities infinite. Brand wins because they get the power of an app. TapCart wins because you have another amazing merchant on your platform. And the agency wins because you have the opportunity to provide a value-added service that you previously couldn't do before, because now you have a much more bite-sized revenue or budget associated with the custom block feature, right?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. That makes a ton of sense. I think a lot of those barriers to entry of like, it's not just the cost associated in the team to build. It's like, well, what should the experience be? Do you see what I mean? Like, what's the real benefit? Why am I doing that? I remember a phase, again, it was a couple of years back. It was people were talking about apps, but they didn't really know why they were doing it. Right. I think, and it's really good to see. And we've seen this a lot. I think some of the points you mentioned are really important around this level, 15% of repeat customers, these types of verticals where there's a high repeat customer rate. I think if you're a brand that has some of those dynamics in play and you're not leveraging a mobile app, I mean, we've seen it to be hugely beneficial for a lot of our brands, especially fashion brands. If I'm honest with you, they seem to do really well in a mobile app environment. So again, maybe some of this has been discussed, but if I'm a brand, let's say I've got 15% of my 15% repeat customer rates. I don't currently have a mobile app. I want to develop one. What have you seen as like really good examples of brands that then develop one and moving customers into that environment, right? Because there's a process that you have to go through of saying, hey, we've got this thing now, which is an app, which is beneficial because of X, Y, and Z. We know this the selfish things from a brand perspective, but from a consumer perspective, are there any kind of like things to really pay attention to or examples where brands have done that really well to move people into that environment?
Yeah, absolutely. For instance, let's use the example Obvi, Ron and Nash from Obvi. They've done an amazing job, building community, building a brand that has scaled in a massive way in a really short period of time. When you think about like what they're leveraging their app for, their incentive to move the app to the users to the app is to further enhance that community. So it kind of speaks to like, why an app? Is it just another channel to check out on? If that was the case, then it's not really giving a whole lot of incentive to the customer to go take that step to download it. So what kind of experience, what kind of content are you going to immerse in them? What kind of feeling of a community are you building in a deeper way with that loyal audience that you couldn't do through other channels, right? So Ron and Ash from Obvi are great examples from that. Same thing with True Classic. Ben, I know quite well. He's obviously a masterclass in so many different ways, and the brand is a masterclass in so many different ways. But again, as it pertains to their app with TapCart, they have they're continue optimizing. I think one thing that Ben says is like, continue to be evaluating your processes and your operations and continuing to optimize. And he has this amazing roadmap and process for the way he goes about doing that. And now as the app has become a bigger part of their strategy, I think they're looking to continue to enhance the experience even further, right? So I think initially when they launched the app, it was kind of more transactional focused, more of a deeper dive, better customer shopping experience. But as they are continuing to evolve the app, it's about like, how do we build a greater sense of community, right? And I think that's what it's going to come down to. And you think of any brand that's looking to say, how do I create that experience? Right now, they have this content's living here, all over the place. Whereas the app can serve as this hub where it bridges the gap between content and e-com, right? Where it wouldn't be on the website, can't be on the website because of the weight that it carries, but that problem doesn't translate over onto the app side.
Yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, the Obby guys, big fans of both of them, good friends of mine as well. They're doing a great job of that. And just for anybody who isn't super aware of some of this, measurement is a big piece. We mentioned earlier, like, well, in that app environment, you don't lose customer data. How do you measure that success? What's the data that comes out of TapCart or a mobile app in general? Is there specific tracking you have to have in place? I'm guessing it all just syncs with Shopify in terms of sales and it's tracked through. I mean, I kind of know, but for anybody who doesn't know, like, what's the tracking element? How do they make sure that it's actually driving upside versus, just shifting revenue from one place to another place?
Absolutely. You're speaking to incrementality, right? The incrementality and how you track that and see the analytics. First step is like, I would invite, kind of like a strategy or exercise. I'd invite any brand listing to go do is, pull up your Google Analytics or over the last 90 days, or pull up your Shopify Analytics over the last 90 days. At the top of that analytics, you're going to screen, you're going to see a certain number of sessions that are coming to the website on a monthly basis or over that 90-day period. And then inside that same box, inside Shopify Analytics, you're going to see a certain number of visitors, right? So, certain number of sessions coming from a certain number of visitors, right? When you take the sessions figure divided by the number of visitors, I'm willing to bet right now that that number for almost every brand that does this exercise is going to be somewhere around 1.2 to 1.3, 1.2 sessions per user or 1.3. If you're over 1.3, you're a god, but I doubt it, right? So, so with that said, why is that means that the average visitor is visiting the brand 1.3 times, or 70% of your users are not making a repeat visit inside that same 30-day window, right? That's okay. That's nothing speaking against what the brand has done. That's just a function of what a website is, right? Now, when you think of getting that user to download an app, you're living on their home screen, you're leveraging push. At minimum, an app is going to 3x that sessions per user figure. In other words, the user is going to end up clicking into the brand's icon, 3x the frequency. So minimum 4.5 times per month, right, than they were before. The range here at TapCart is a 3x increase in sessions per user compared to web to a 6x increase. And that's just simply as a function of the real estate you're living in on the home screen, not in the browser, right? So that's like metric number one, where you would see that incrementality when it comes to traffic. The next part is the conversion rate aspect of things. So now the customer downloads the app, right? What are they doing as an audience? Well, we removed two major friction points that exist on any website: loading times, whether you're headless or not, loading times. And number two is the number of clicks to the checkout, right? We shrink that down from on average 10 to 14 for a given brand to 1 to 2 to 3 clicks. Both those friction points removed, conversion rates minimum 40% higher than what are going to be on the website, right? And then lastly, you think of, okay, you bring those customers back more frequently. Those sessions in the app are converting at a higher conversion rate on web and at higher AOVs, because app just promotes higher AOVs by on average 22%. And we're going to extract 2.5x more revenue from your most loyal audience. In other words, you would be able to go in Shopify Analytics, go into your customer data, run a bunch of cohort analysis that says, Anne, Mary, Adam, and Susan shop the brand 1.5 times last year. Now they've downloaded the app, and now they're on average shopping 3.5 to 4 times per year, right? So you're going to be able to roll your sleeves up and see that cohort analysis inside the Shopify Analytics dashboard as well, right? Because all that customer and account data is synced on app and the website.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I feel like I reference them on every podcast. I don't work with them. I'm just a fan of the brand. I'm not wearing it today, but Represent, it's a UK-based fashion brand. And I'm a big customer of theirs. I love their brand. Their app, it's interesting because, to your point of like customer experience versus transactional, but there's a transactional benefit because of the environment and the fact that, you're reducing that load time, you're reducing those clicks to purchase, everything else. But what they've done in their app is it's a workout app, right? Because the brand is quite connected and synonymous to fitness. And so George, one of the founders, posts, his fitness routines, and then underneath it, it's like, here's the shorts I'm wearing, here's the t-shirt I'm wearing, and it's cleverly done. You've mentioned it a bunch of times, like, SMS is super transactional because, largely you kind of have to be to outweigh the cost of the sends, right? So you have to prove out that ROI. Um, with TapCart, without going into like financial models and stuff, but just from an overall consumer experience, when we talk about it as less transactional, more an environment and community building, is that represent example where like the focal point isn't download our app because you can shop in a different environment. It's download our app because here's additional value we're giving you as a customer. Oh, and by the way, here's like some exclusives and some easy ways to shop our products. Is that the way people should be thinking about things when it comes to an app environment?
100%, right? Represent is an amazing example of differentiating the experience in the app from the website, right? And focusing the app on delivering additional value adds for that customer, right? Something that they can't get anywhere else. So why would someone download that app? Is because they're getting an experience that they can't get anywhere else, right? And so they've done an incredible job where it puts the e-com flavor there where they can check out in a fraction of the time it traditionally would take on any website. But at the end of the day, the emphasis of the app is not the shopping aspect. It's the content piece, it's the delivery, it's their curated notification strategy, like all of these things that are in the notification strategy just speaking to that customer depending on who they are, right? So that's the part where Represent is an amazing example of leveraging the app, creating a differentiated experience from the website.
Yeah. Yeah. I talk about this quite a bit on, in every brand that I talk to, and quite a lot on LinkedIn, because to do that, you have to have a really good understanding, or at least a decent hypothesis of who your customer is, and therefore what those value adds, community building, loyalty building aspects of your brand are. Do you see what I mean? Like, Represent are quite specific on doing that around fitness because they know a large portion of their consumers are into that fitness world. So I think it's just a really interesting point that, that's where you see that loyalty building. But I think where brands need to be really certain is really understanding, well, our consumers care about this outside of our product. And so, do you see what I mean? And be able to create that type of environment and value adds when they're thinking about, not just a mobile app environment, but how they think through community and loyalty building.
Absolutely. And knowing your customer is the key, I think, not just to the app side of the equation and how to build that community there, but virtually every aspect of the business, right? Building that absolutely perfect product, you need to know, how who your customer is so you can tailor it to them. How to build the most ideal customer experience as a whole in a holistic way. You really need to know who your customer is to understand what's going to resonate most with them and drive that loyalty, right? So knowing that customer is key. I think that would be another thing I would add is when it comes to the app side, if you don't know who your customer is, app's probably not, you're not probably not ready for an app yet because the goal is to curate that personal experience that's speaking to that loyal customer. And if you don't know who that loyal customer is, it's kind of a guessing game at that point, right? That's clearly not the case with Represent. They know exactly who their customer is. They know exactly who they're talking to, and that's why their app has been so successful. But then when you think about like ultimately it's the intersection of customer experience and a retention channel that customers grow to love, right? That they find it easier. I know I'm going to shop this brand a whole lot. I love the content that they're giving me. I love this experience that they're giving me. And I know when I shop there, it's going to be a frictionless experience as opposed to, anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Neal, I feel like this has been a masterclass on the whys and hows of a mobile app. Again, I know even across the clients that we work with, it's proving to be really beneficial around that customer retention, loyalty building piece. To kind of close things out, we'll two last things. In the world of mobile apps, right? What are you most excited for in the future, whether that's short term or long term? Where do you see it evolving?
I think mobile apps have been around for a while. I think we're seeing a larger momentum than ever before as an industry, largely because prior to 18, 24 months ago, no one really cared about retention, right? Customer acquisition was so cheap. Customer acquisition was so cheap that retention didn't really matter. I could just keep repaying to reacquire that customer, and it wasn't a big deal.
Sorry to interrupt. It's almost wild how it seems like a new thing. From like a broader conversation standpoint, you see people like, and I don't begrudge it because I totally understand, but the fact that retention is only becoming like a popular thing, to me, it's always been that's the sustainability of your business, right? So sorry to interrupt, but it's just, I think that's where the attention should not always be, because acquisition is important. You can't retain customers you don't have, but for that to I guess what I'm saying is it's very pleasing to see in our ecosystem and the broader ecosystem that retention is getting the focus that I feel like it should always have had. But anyway, carry on.
No, you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, it took a tough economy, iOS 14 changes, and all those things to teach brands that retention is important. But again, it's better late than never, because at the end of the day, when you focus on retention, you're also actually focusing on customer experience in that process, right? Developing a deeper connection with that customer, delivering the most value to that customer, driving that loyalty. So in the end, it's going to be a huge driver. But I think that's what I'm so excited about is that like brands are officially considering retention a critical part. You see more head of retention roles at brands than you ever did before. So those kind of concepts are really exciting. So I think mobile apps as a category has fallen into this unique tailwind where customer acquisition has become so expensive. So when that customer does come into the funnel, how do we make the most of that so it ends up becoming a profitable customer in the process? It's not profitable at that first transaction. It's profitable at transaction 2, 3, and 4. How do we deliver that? Then you combine that with the recessionary environment. It's tough to have costs going through the roof, margins getting thinner. So how do you make it the most of all of those channels to drive a higher ROI? And then lastly, it comes down to understanding that to be truly omnichannel, I don't think anyone can be truly omnichannel if you don't have an app that is fundamentally so easy. That's the easiest possible channel to launch, more than a website, more than a retail store, more than any other, more than Amazon. So much easier. How can you call yourself omnichannel without that touch point? And now that's gaining greater momentum. So I think that's what I'm most excited about.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. I agree with all your points. Amazing. Neal, super helpful. I always learn so much, even though, like I said, we're using TapCart, a lot of our brands are. If people want to connect with you, where should they go? And if people want to learn more about mobile apps and what TapCart offers in the marketplace, where should they go?
You can find me on LinkedIn always. As far as TapCart, tapcart.com. Always happy to engage in a conversation. Just let me know. But thank you so much, Daniel. This was absolutely awesome. I love the work that you do. I admire the work that you do. You've done some incredible work, brought in some extreme brilliance to a lot of brands that have had a lot of success. And it's just a privilege to be here today and have a chat with you.
I appreciate you, man. Likewise. The sentiment is exactly the same to you. Thank you so much, Neal. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a good day.